Hello and welcome to the A Way to Live Well podcast. My name is Anna Maria and I am your host. If you've been listening to this show for a while, thanks a million. It is great to have you here. And if it's your first time here, welcome. You are so welcome, and it is very wonderful to have you join us today. On today's podcast, I'm going to be speaking all about back health. So some of the topics I'm going to be covering is a little bit into the backstory as to why I became really interested in back pain and taking care of your back. A little bit into why we might experience back pain, and also the structure of the spine, going into a little bit of the anatomy. I always think learning about our anatomical structure and understanding how the structures in our body work is a really helpful guide to strengthening our understanding of our own bodies and helping us to work more effectively with them. So you might say that I have a very strong personal interest in back care due to the fact that in around 2017, I began to experience for the first time in my life back pain. It didn't resolve itself on its own. In fact, it started to get even worse over time. At the height of this pain experience, it felt as though I would no longer be able to do the things that I loved or work that I loved because of it. So things like doing yoga seemed to aggravate it in some ways, and even some of my work as a massage therapist seemed to be aggravating it as well. It was a bit of a knock, obviously, to my confidence as a movement practitioner, especially since I'm always harping on about listening to your body. And especially as a hands-on soft tissue specialist, I felt as though I should have the answers to resolve this issue myself. But as they say, you just don't know what you don't know. And it is extremely valuable to seek help from other practitioners and to delve a little bit deeper into the reasons why we experience pain, and particularly back pain. It's really my intention for this podcast and this episode particularly for it to both be informative and supportive for you if you are suffering with back pain, and also for any practitioners who work with clients, yoga teachers as well, who work with their students who suffer from back pain. So back pain is the single largest cause of disability in the UK, with low back pain accounting for 11% of total disability. This is according to a study by the NHS. My work as a yoga teacher and a clinical massage therapist is considered to be complementary therapy. This means it's a supportive and preventative care focused practice. I've come to realize that in order to truly help each person, it's important to highlight the importance of creating a network of support around each individual. Allopathic or Western medicine is an important part of emergency intervention. There are some important questions we need to be asking as therapists when working with those who suffer with acute and chronic back pain. This is to rule out any cases which may be of a more serious nature. We call these red flag issues. It's something that should be immediately referred to a GP or A&E. So issues to look out for: unrelenting pain, even at night kind of pain, unexplained weight loss, numbness down both sides of the body, and bleeding or incontinence. So we really need to create a full picture of the person's history as a way to understand about previous or existing health conditions. Once you can rule out anything that might be a serious underlying issue, we can begin to assess. So yoga and massage may even be something that has been recommended to somebody by their GP. This is becoming more and more popular, which is brilliant. So why do we experience back pain? Well, there is no clear-cut answer to this, and it really needs to be approached on a case-by-case basis. So it depends is the answer. We all come with our own unique set of biological, psychological, and socio-economic circumstances. And when it comes to learning to manage and reduce pain, we need to gain an understanding of all the different aspects which affect and contribute to our experience of pain. The biopsychosocial model is both a philosophy of clinical care and a practical clinical guide. Philosophically, it is a way of understanding how suffering, disease, and illness are affected by multiple levels of experience, from the societal to the molecular. At a practical level, it is a way of understanding a person's subjective experience, giving us clues and insights on how to best support and care for the person. So as a therapist, I will conduct a full consultation with each person, really looking at the individual aspects of what they're bringing forward. So in similar way with yoga, we're always looking at the layers of experience. So not just what's happening in your physical body, but also emotionally, energetically, what's going on around your work at the moment. Are there any issues at home? Anything that might contribute to stress and anything that might heighten those moments of extreme pain in the body in order to sort of highlight the impact stress can have on any pain conditions. I also think it's really interesting to inquire as to where a person experiences pain or tension in their body when they are under those challenging or stressful situations. Personally, for me, I experience pain quite a lot in my back still when I'm feeling under stress or when things are a little bit off kilter in general day to day, or I haven't been taking care of myself and taking those moments of self-care. And also in my digestive system. I just know those are the places that will start to send me general feedback when everything is not sort of running smoothly. And this begins to make a lot of sense when you begin to understand a little bit more about how our nervous system responds to stress. And particularly if we look at the vagal nerve and vagal toning, which you can go back to one of my previous episodes to listen more about. All right, so what is pain? We all experience pain differently, and it's not created equal. Pain is personal, emotional, and instinctual. Because pain is influenced by a personal experience along with stored memories of previous pains, it is subjective. So the amount of pain you experience does not even necessarily relate to the amount of tissue damage sustained. There can, in fact, be tissue damage without pain and pain without tissue damage. This essentially means that people might have things that would be considered to be main causes of pain, but not experience any pain from it. And people might have nothing apparently wrong with them when taken through an X-ray or an MRI, but they might experience excruciating pain. So have a listen to this figure. There was a study done where they looked at people with no low back pain, and 52% of these people had bulging discs, and 27% of them had disc protrusions. That's crazy, and no pain associated with these. There was also a study done on people with rotator cuff tears, and they found that 34% of the people experienced no pain or other symptoms. Another study carried out on 45 people who had no pain symptoms or history of pain in their hips revealed that they had something abnormal in their hips, 73% of them. So what's going on here? How can this be? Clinical scientist and researcher Lorimer Moseley presents the theory behind pain experience in a really entertaining and relatable way. He gives a talk on TEDx, Why Things Hurt. I'm going to go a little bit into the story he gave, but I highly recommend you head on over and listen to his talk. He does it in a really brilliant fashion. Dr. Moseley shares with us the story about when he's out walking in the bush with a friend. He feels something touch him on the outside of his left leg on the skin. This activates receptors that send messages up the spinal cord into the brain, and the message is sufficient enough to activate nociceptors. These are our pain receptors, and telling him that something dangerous has happened on the outside of the left leg on the skin. And the spinal nociceptors, these are our pain receptors, take the message up to the thalamus, which sits at the back of the brain, repeating the danger message. Now his brain has to evaluate how dangerous this is really. So it looks at everything it knows. It asks, have we been anywhere like this before? Have we been in this environment before? Yes. Has it happened at this part of the gait cycle? Yes. And then it proceeds to let him know that his whole life growing up, he used to scratch his legs on twigs, and this is not dangerous. So he can kick off the twig and carry on his merry way. He then recalls going for a swim in the river, and that's the last thing he remembers, as he was bitten by an extremely venomous brown eastern snake. 6 months later, he goes walking in the bush once again with a different friend. Something touches him on the outside edge of his left ankle again. This time, he's in agony. He experiences a white hot poke of pain. The same message transmitted, but this time, when what the feedback comes back with is that the last time this happened, he almost died. The brain makes him hurt so much that he can't do anything else. But then, when his friend takes the time to look at his leg, she notices that it's just a tiny scratch from a twig. This illustrates to us how pain can be so different because of meaning, because of past experiences, because of his memory from what had happened previously. The brain essentially decides whether something hurts or not 100% of the time. So if your pain condition isn't always from damage to your tissue or an underlying issue, what's happening? We've sort of learned over the past few decades that pain is a perception of your brain and not always an accurate representation of what's happening at the tissue level surrounding your muscles, your ligaments, and your joints. So the things that affect us include our emotional state, previous experiences, expectations of pain, our perceived sense of how much control we have over the pain, and other social factors. So what's happening with persistent pain conditions? If we know that most injuries take around 3 to 6 weeks to heal, even fractures heal within 6 weeks, why can some pain carry on for months and even years? This is called sensitization. So the nociceptive signals, those pain signals that we talked about earlier, which travel to the brain through the spinal cord, can be turned up or turned down. So in cases of sensitization of pain, the signals are magnified by the nervous system, which can enhance our experience of pain. So am I essentially telling you that your pain is all in your head? Well, kind of. Is that helpful? Definitely not. Is your pain real and what you're feeling extremely real in your body? Absolutely. So why am I telling you this? Basically, education can be one of our most important tools for helping to transform our pain. With this knowledge, we can begin to understand that you're not damaged or broken, that you can begin positive healing behaviors again, getting back to activities that you enjoy, like moving, playing, and changing negative thought patterns. Okay, so let's go into a little bit more about the structure of your spine. In order to understand your back pain, it's helpful to know a little bit more about how your back works. Your back is a complex structure that provides support for your pelvis, your legs, your rib cage, your arms, and your skull. The spine is made up of bones called vertebrae that are stacked together to form kind of a loose S-shaped column. Each vertebra is cushioned by spongy tissue called intervertebral discs. These discs are basically like little shock absorbers, and they give your spine its flexibility. Vertebrae are joined by pairs of small joints known as facet joints. We called them kind of lovingly in our massage training the Frankenstein bones. So if you're thinking about on the neck spine, they're those little bony ones that you kind of stick out if you're looking at a skeleton from the side. So a mesh of connective tissue called ligaments holds your spine together, and complex layers of muscle provide structural support and allow you to move. Your spinal cord runs through the center of your vertebral column and connects your brain to the rest of your body. So this is really important. Your entire spinal column, consists of 24 individual bones called vertebrae, plus 2 sections of naturally fused vertebrae, the sacrum and the coccyx. These are both located at the very bottom of your spine. So when most people talk to you about the spinal column, they're referring to those 24 vertebrae down the middle of the back. Sometimes you can see little bits of them popping out in some people. The vertebral column can be divided into 5 different regions. So you've got the cervical spine, thoracic spine, lumbar spine, and then the sacrum and the coccyx. So generally, a regular vertebral column creates a graceful double S-shaped curve, as I said, And the cervical spine curves inward, the thoracic spine gently curves outward, and the lumbar curve inwards again. So sometimes these curves can be exaggerated. So if the thoracic spine is overly curved, this can be called kyphosis. And if the lumbar spine is overly curved, it can be called lordosis. We can also have a flattening of the lumbar curve as well. So there's not that beautiful kind of gentle curve inwards there. And this S-shaped curve gives the spine really brilliant strength and shock absorbing qualities. Your spine relies on a number of supporting structures, including those spinal discs that I mentioned earlier, spinal ligaments, and of course spinal muscles, joints and tendons. So hopefully that gives you a kind of overview of the beautiful complex structure of the spine. And as we know, the more complex things are, the more things can go wrong. So what causes back pain? Basically, it's not fully understood. Most people with back pain don't have any significant damage to their spine, like we were talking about earlier. So the pain comes from muscles, ligaments, and joints generally. And some of the common causes of back pain include repetitive strain from heavy lifting or manual handling. If we make sudden, awkward movements, or not getting enough regular physical exercise can also impact it. Being overweight as well is an impact, and stress. So there are some health conditions that are linked to back pain. Like I was saying earlier, these are things that need to be checked out by your doctor, such as osteoarthritis and ankylosing spondylitis. This is basically damage to the slippery tissue that covers the ends of the bones, which cause them to rub together, producing pain, swelling, and even reduction of mobility. Spinal stenosis, this is the narrowing of the spaces within your spine. And when this happens, the spinal cord and the nerves that exit at the particular parts of the spine may become compressed or pinched, causing problems in other parts of your body. And then osteoporosis, which is a condition that causes your bones to become thinner, weaker, and more brittle. So it's important that you sort of find out from your doctor the best ways to work with these conditions. A lot of them really benefit from strength building and some mobility work, and really gently working with a practitioner who knows exactly what they're doing. And a lot of the time, a lot of the languaging we use around these things can be really, really helpful for working with people. So instead of, thinking about osteoporosis as being this kind of debilitating thing where you might break and you're brittle, maybe think about the ways that we can talk about it that help encourage this idea that we can build up that strength again. So supporting the bones through strength training, and really helping people through gentle balance training to avoid falls, and walking. Walking is a huge an important part of our daily strength building. So it builds up strength through the feet, up through the legs, and into the hips as well. So what can affect our likelihood to experience persistent pain? Maybe if you're already living with pain and you have negative beliefs about your chances of recovery. If you are perhaps experiencing depression or anxiety or high stress levels. So this can also relate into, work. What is your work-life balance like, and all of these things contribute to our recovery and our ability to come into more positive behavioral patterns to help us recover. There's this other cause of pain in general, which is known as idiopathic, which means essentially that we don't know where it came from or how or why, and it just kind of came on out of what seems like the blue. And this can be really frustrating, and our brains naturally want to get to the bottom of things and find out the reasons why. But a lot of the time, the same kind of protocols for recovery can apply to this type of pain condition as well. So what kind of exercise is the best kind of exercise for helping you to recover from back pain? Well, any exercise that you're doing is the best exercise. There really hasn't been any significant proof to say that any one exercise is more or less helpful. But the reason I really love yoga as a practice to help support any back pain issues is because it's a really comprehensive practice, right? We don't just focus on the strength and the flexibility, but we also attend to the mind. So finding tools and ways to support any kind of stressful conditions through breathwork, pranayama, and through meditation to literally put a pause between stimulus and response so that we can start to really observe how we experience pain, to notice how it changes from day to day, from situation to situation. It can also be really helpful to keep a pain journal, to note down every day what was going on, when did your pain symptoms increase, when did they feel better, so that you really get a good handle on what's going on and how your body responds to different situations. If your spine is healthy and happy at the moment, you definitely want to keep it that way. Preventative care is the best kind of care. So thinking about all the ways your spine moves, so both flexion, forward folding, extension, back bending, side bending, rotations like twists, all of these things are so important for your movement patterns. Think about your breathing as well and how this impacts your spine. Thinking about all the muscles that connect onto your spine and work with your breathing apparatus, so your diaphragm, even your psoas. All of these muscles are really important, and this is again why yoga is such a brilliant practice to keep as part of your daily health routine. Even 2 to 5 minutes of a bit of cat-cow and a few other little twists and things can be so impactful for your day. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it helpful, please feel free to share it on, like, share. Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate you listening, and be well. Take care of your spines. Bye.